Hi, this is Dr. Witty. I'm a consultant specializing in sales training curriculum. My job is to help training managers and HR professionals to take a second look at salespeople's training programs. In this presentation, I'm going to talk about one of the main problems that prevent salespeople to deliver the kind of outcomes that managers will want to see. I will also tell you how you can, or show you how you can correct that problem. I also want to tell you that I was a salesperson and the job has made an impression on me to the point that I did some research on how to maximize the potential of salespeople and also on how to tackle some of the most common problems that the sales organization do face. In other words, it was like killing two birds with one stone. And that research led me to publish this book, A Human-Centered Approach to Improvement and Growth, that you can find online. Now, did you know that since the second industrial revolution, almost all managers and consultants have been preoccupied by this question: how to improve the performance of an individual in the organization? The question is crucial because the performance of an organization begins with the level of performance of an individual in the organization. In this presentation, I will focus on the case of sales organization, but what I'm going to share with you is applicable to any organization. All right, this is the agenda. I will tell you briefly about me. I will also share with you two research findings that speak to this topic. Next, we'll look at how the idea of training came to the mind of managers and consultants back then in the 19th century and how it was designed in the 20th century. And we will connect the dots between how it was initially designed and how training now is implemented in organization, particularly among sales organization. Let's get started. As I mentioned to you, I was a salesperson. I did inside, outside sales. I did business to business, business to consumer. I also worked for different type of sales organizations, including for Fortune 500. Like some salespeople, I too struggle with low performance, job dissatisfaction, and job burnout. I was able to overcome the first two. However, when I was no longer a salesperson, I asked myself, what really kept me from being on my A game most of the time, as opposed to sometimes? My intuition led me to focus on how salespeople are trained in corporate America. So I decided to do some research. And I want to share with you two research findings that stood out for me and that literally speak to this topic. The first one is in management. Research in management suggests that poor training design is the main cause of poor performance in organization. Study also reveals that there is that poor design can cost a fortune to organization, and there is also a human cost associated with it. Basically, what they say is poor design can cost money, and there is also a negative impact in the life of employees slash people. And the second key research is in self-education, and this is really pertinent because self-education is a discipline that focuses mainly on issues that sales organizations do face. And according to it, the conventional sales training program that is commonly used by sales organizations is too narrow and obsolete. Now, let's look at the conventional sales training program that this discipline is talking about. Most sales organizations use this design, which is made of product knowledge, customer knowledge, and sales process. If you take a close look at it, you will realize that this design trains salespeople only in two main areas: knowledge and skills. However, when we are talking about improving the performance, knowledge and skills are not enough because it is difficult to improve the performance of someone without addressing that person's behavior or mindset. Behavior is the key ingredient for improvement. Therefore, for either managers or, in this case, sales managers or salespeople, it is a tall order to expect them to deliver results that stand out when behavior is not part of the training. Now, let's look at how the idea of training was first introduced, how it was designed, and how it is now implemented in the 21st century, particularly in sales, among sales organizations. The idea of training came to the mind of business managers and consultants back then in the 19th century. And it was from the desire of managers and consultants to see production go up. At the time, two schools of thought emerged. First one was a human approach that was championed by Robert Owen, who was also a factory owner and manager. According to this school of thought, production can improve when factory workers are seen or perceived as people. And that was a novel idea at the time because at the time, factory workers were not seen as people, but as an extension of machinery. So the human approach was more for improving the working condition. They were also for reducing the numbers of hours and to also increasing the minimum age for children. Now, the second school of thought, which was championed by Charles Babbage was a mechanical engineer, and he believed more in efficiency, division of workers, like having different groups. So division of workers, division of material, a division of equipment, machinery. And but he also believed that it was important for the management to work with workers. So a partnership was also important for production to increase. It's worth mentioning that none of those two school of thought uh, was tested. So there were no research study conducted at the time. Now, in the 20th century, it was not anymore a desire from managers and consultants to increase production, but it was a pressure from the market to businesses to improve performance because now economy expanded. Businesses had better equipment and they also had easy access to capital. However, there was a shortage of skilled workers. So managers and consultants had to find a way to improve production. I would say increase production. Okay, now they came together, um, managers and consultants came together to find a way to address the pressure from the market to improve productivity. So they look back, they say, okay, how did previous managers or business leaders and consultants address the problem in the 19th century? So they realized that in the 19th century, they wanted to increase production as a whole, the production of the organization as a whole. So it was more like a micro approach. So they believe that those of the 20th century believe that a micro, so trying to increase the performance of each worker will eventually increase the production of the organization as a whole. So so it was basically a micro versus a micro approach. So that school of thought was pioneered by Frederick Taylor, and it was well received among businesses and large organizations. And that school of thought is what is now known as the scientific management approach. And many other researchers invested in that. Some of them are Eric Gant, Frank Gilbert, Lillian Gilbert, and a late follower, Mary Parker Follett. And she will play a different role later on, as we will see. Now, It's also worth mentioning that the scientific approach were not tested, so there were no research conducted at the time. And there were also critics of that approach, even though it was largely embraced by organizations at the time. So the critics argued that a scientific approach was a mean to give more work to each worker and for the organization to reduce the number of hours and worker. And they also believe that it was a mean to micro manage workers. Some of those arguments kind of resonated to Mary Parker Follett. She she agreed with those critics. So although she also championed a scientific approach, she chose a different path, what is now known as the behavioral management approach. Again, there were no research study conducted at the time. Now, but things changed later on. Um, the community of scholars and business leaders wanted to really conduct a study, which is basically a systematic approach to gather data and to address a specific question. So that's where the Hawthorne studies came in, what is known for. The studies were led by Elton Mayo, and it was funded by General Electric, and they used two main variables, elimination and compassion. They also used, during the experiment, they had two groups, Group A and Group B, just put it that way. And the instruments were improving the light for Group A and make no change for Group B and decrease the lightning for Group B. But Group B had also a compassionate manager or supervisor. Now, let's go over the results from those experiments. They, according to those experiments, productivity went up for both groups. When lighting was improved, and when there was no change for Group B. Productivity also still went up for Group B, even when they decreased the illumination, the lighting in the workplace for Group B with a compassionate supervisor or manager. So even though the decrease, so the working condition wasn't that acceptable, but because they had a compassionate supervisor, productivity still went up. But at one point, productivity for Group B with compassionate supervisor, productivity went down. Still, I mean, went down, even though they had a good, like a human, a compassionate manager, supervisor, the productivity still went down. Okay. Now, so there was some, now there was some discussion among them. Um, One group of researcher, uh, the scientific approach, believed that that to improve the performance of an individual in the organization, it was important, it was crucial to train workers uh, on skills and on process. But researchers of the behavioral management approach believe that worker could improve if they had the proper skills set and the behavior. So having a compassionate supervisor or manager, that those were the two key elements to improve productivity. So, but after some debate, they had some agreement. They agreed that productivity can increase when um, workers had a decent working condition, and they also agreed, based on facts, that productivity can still increase when the working condition is not really there, but the worker have a compassionate, caring supervisor or managers. And they also agree based on fact that you can have a caring manager, but if the working condition is really worst, productivity cannot increase. A worker will not be able to perform at their best. Now, base let's see here. Okay. From that research, teams stood up. So they agree that to improve the performance of an individual, it was important to train people on process, on skill set, and on behavior. It was necessary. So these are the key ingredients to see each worker improve the performance. Process, skill set, and behavior. So the main takeaway is to have is to blend those two approaches. All right, now let's connect the dot. Let's connect the dot between what research say and what is conducted today, particularly in sales organization. Okay, and as we can see here, improving performance of an individual required to be trained on process, skills, and behavior. Now, this is what is happening in right now in among sales organization. Behavior is not there. Salespeople are not trained on behavior, and it is difficult, very difficult to improve the performance of someone without addressing that person's behavior. And because behavior is missing, there are some implications. Okay. And These are the implications for both salespeople and sales organization. Sales organization deal with turnover. So turnover has a implication has a negative effect also on salespeople because you are quitting your job, you just you waste your time, all of that. So because so these are the implications when behavior is not part of the training program. Okay, emotional exhaustion is low performance, job dissatisfaction, job burnout. Those problems are challenges for sales organization as well as salespeople. So behavior is the key ingredient when it comes to improvement, and it's missing. It's missing in most sales training programs. Okay, I can sum up this presentation in this way. Okay, imagine that you have two captains and that are leading two teams and two teams of soldiers. Let's put it that way. And they are about to go to a battle. One captain, Captain A, train his soldiers using procedure. So the standard training that's given to them. So it trains on procedure, tactics, and techniques. Captain B does the same thing. He goes over the procedure, over the techniques and the tactics. However, he goes extra mile by reminding each soldier who they are, what is most important to each of them. Now, who do you think gave a better preparation? Which 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 uh which soldier do you think will are likely to to overcome obstacles? Which of the two teams do you think are likely to produce leaders in their own right? Now, question for you. Which captain are you or would you want to be? If you are interested in learning more about a simplified, comprehensive training approach, please feel free to contact me at christian.witty@gmail. And remember that most sales training programs do not include behavior. Behavior is the key ingredient when it comes to improvement. Thanks for watching.